What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Wellraiser Radio. I'm your host, Joshua Coburn, and per usual with me is my brozilla, Shane Scala, and my bro Chacho, Simon Sanborn. Today we have guest Lolly Galvin on the show. She is kind of the founder of the Dignity Project, which goes out and, well, actually she's taken across the nation. She's helping homeless people in a bunch of cities all across the nation. We're going to talk about what it really means to live by example and to be a real humanist, which is what you can find her at on Instagram. So check it out. We're starting right now. What the heck is the Dignity Project? Can you dive into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, basically it's kind of a movement of sort. I give to homeless people and I share their stories as well. And then I encourage other people to do the same. It kind of started as an accident on Periscope, which I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's a live stream app. And I went on and I started with like a goal of $500 to just do acts of kindness for homeless people. And the more I shared it, it started becoming crazy. And now I have over $10,000. And I'm going to travel the country giving to homeless people. So it's giving to homeless people, getting people to acknowledge homeless people. I think a lot of people want to give to the homeless, but they don't know how to really go about it, how to start. So it's kind of about connecting all types of humans together.
So that brings up a good point. How did you start? How did this happen? What was like the catalyst for you to get out there and just start diving into these kinds of conversations and lending a hand?
Well, when I reached the original goal, I was like, okay, how it started, I was just going to do random acts of kindness, right? And my first act was take a homeless guy out to lunch. And I was kind of nervous about it. I was like, I've never talked, I've given $1 here or there. I've, bought lunches, but I've never spoken to a homeless person. So I asked him to go to lunch with me. I filmed the whole thing, broadcasted the whole thing, shared a little bit of his story, and it just kind of went from there.
So you just like walked up to this dude and was like, hey, yo, so you want to go out to lunch with this, beautiful young lady? I'm going to take you out. We're going to do this thing. It's going to be awesome, or what?
I walked by him like 4 times before I had got the nerve to ask him, because it's funny. It's like, I'll talk to anyone, but I just felt like, is he going to be comfortable with me, using the camera? Does he want to even go out to lunch with me? You know what I mean? And it's funny. His reaction was so funny. He's just like, yeah, sure. And he picked up his sign in his bag and we went to this burger place, and that was pretty much it. Yeah.
So what initiated like the whole random act of kindness thing? I think I can appreciate this bigger picture that you have now, but what kind of was the catalyst for this random acts of kindness in general?
Well, when I went on Periscope the first time, I had like 700 viewers in like 15 minutes. And I was like, is this insane or what?
So what were you doing on Periscope?
I think it was just because it was the first time I did it, right? And, I guess the new person on there, people just go on. I wasn't really doing anything. I just was like, what is this? I talked to a couple people. And when you sign off, you can see how many people saw you. I was like, this many people are sitting somewhere in the world. So maybe I can do something good with this. And I went on again, and I kind of bounced the idea for just total strangers, of course, online. And they were like, yeah, go for it. And in the first day, I got $250 in donations. So I was like, maybe there is something to this. It just started with random acts of kindness. And then a local news reporter did a story saying that I do random acts of kindness for the homeless, which was not my intention. But I kind of let people guide me. And now that's all I do is hang out with homeless people. So
what were you doing as a profession or to make money before you did this periscoping adventure?
Yeah, I had a chain of boutiques.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Like women's clothing boutique kind of thing, or what was?
It's clothing in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I sold clothes, gifts, furniture, all kinds of things.
So at 31, you had a chain of boutiques. Is that correct?
24.
Oh, you're 24.
So that you had the guts to go out and do these random acts.
No, at 24 I didn't have a chain. At 24 I started in a little shack in Atlantic City.
Okay.
And I just had a little teeny tiny place, and it just kind of just like this, it just kind of grew. So
is that entrepreneur?
I was tired of it pretty much is what really happened at 30. And then I took a year off. It was a year before I did this, what I'm doing now. So I traveled, I went to Thailand. I sat around, I had time for myself. I thought about what I wanted to do, and
is that entrepreneurial spirit kind of what leads you to be as bold as you are with some of these ideas? I mean, some people might think this is kind of crazy or different, but I mean, if you're willing to take chances like open a shop in a shack in Atlantic City, it sounds like helping out the homeless would be a nice little leap.
Yeah, all my ideas are pretty crazy, I guess. So that's why when I started this, I had no idea that this was going to turn into this. Like I didn't tell any of my friends I was doing this. I only did it to strangers because I was like, most of my ideas, like you just said, are crazy. And then I started sharing it with my friends, and then it kind of just turned into something bigger. So yeah, I guess I have a little bit of that spirit in me.
Well, what's so great is if you've watched any of our other shows or listened to any of our other radio shows, like, you know, the people we generally kind of work with are out there kind of living the dream, living without boundaries. And what's awesome is I didn't expect to exactly have that specific conversation with you, but it sounds like we can very easily do that because, gosh, at 24, you started a small business and grew that apparently pretty quick. I mean, that's 6 years before 30, and you had a chain of them. Holy crap, that's worth acknowledging. Like, kudos to you for kicking so much butt. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Did you go? That was cool. Did you go to school for like a business degree, or were your parents like very influential with like just supporting you or pushing you in a direction to say, you know, whatever you want to do, we're behind you?
Do I have a business degree? No, I have a degree in communications, which is a very useless degree. If I had my own choice, I will be honest, I would not have gone to school, but I was pushed by my parents to go to college, which I don't regret. It's a good experience. My dad has a business. So I grew up kind of, that's all I really knew was somebody owning a business, doing their own thing. But I saw how hard he worked and how often he worked. So I wanted to work for myself in kind of a different realm than him. So yeah, they definitely encouraged me for sure.
Unbelievable. Like, that's super awesome. At that young of an age to be able to put that together. A lot of kids, you know, to your point, seem a little lost and are pushed into college and maybe other areas they don't want to go into, but to know that you kind of still leverage that into an area you want to go in. And to hear you again at 31, you mentioned that, like, oh, I took a year off. I traveled to Thailand. I kind of took time for me. Like, that's massive. And I hope the listeners are realizing, like, it can be done at any age. That is huge. Again, I'm like, congratulations on that, because that's things that, you know, I still hear my parents talking about, and they're retiring. So well done. Like, that's crazy.
No, and you know, it's true. I think seeing my dad and seeing that he didn't get to do a lot of things, you know, for me, you know, I'll be honest, I had to learn to live with less. That's basically how it was. I learned to live with less, but I get to go and travel is always my number one priority. And giving, really, those are the two things that make me happiest. So for me, it's like, I'd rather have less things and be able to have more freedom. You know, you can build a business, of course, you can have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. But, you know, what are you doing for other people? What are you doing for yourself? And in the beginning, when I first stopped working, work was such an important part of my life, and it like kind of overtook my life. I actually didn't know what to do with myself. So I started getting into meditation, yoga, those kind of things, because when you sit with your thoughts right here in this apartment all the time, it's kind of like work. You realize how much work is a part of your life and how much your purpose is lacking in your life. Not for everyone, but in my case, I felt like that's what
because work becomes your identity.
Exactly.
My father has worked at the same factory for over 20 years, and just recently he had to retire because of physical conditions. He physically couldn't, his back was so bad that he couldn't go back to work. But seeing him being lost, like not knowing who he was or who he is, because work was getting up every day and working hard every day. That's what he identified as, this is who I am as Jim. When that goes away, who am I? And for you to have that realization at a very young age is, it's probably the thing that is going to catapult you into a whole nother level of living, because people, myself included, I'm 41 years old. The idea of me walking away from this identity that my 9-to-5 job, that is my identity, That is extremely scary. Extremely scary. I couldn't imagine it.
Was it scary for you?
What's the first thing everybody asks you? What's the first? What, like, hi, nice to meet you. You know, I meet people all the time. What do you do? Right.
Right.
You know, but they don't mean what do you do for fun? What's your hobby? What you decide yourself? What do you do for work? So you're exactly right. You know, people really identify with their jobs. So.
How do you answer that question now? How do you answer that when people say, what do you do?
I tell them now, pretty much, honestly, what I do is hang out with homeless people. That's the reality of it all. So, like, I'll say something like that, and then that breaks the ice, and then there's a conversation. But
Sure.
I try to get people to visit the website and see what I'm doing. And I tell them that now I have a nonprofit, and a lot of people don't quite understand what like when I just did a couple interviews with bloggers yesterday. They don't quite understand if I'm trying to end homelessness. Like, a lot of them are like, well, what's your next step to? And it's really, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm more trying to bring people together and understand that we're more alike and different. That's like the overview of it all, while I do concentrate on the homeless and I give to them. So it's just about, I tell them, and I hope that it creates dialogue, and some people get it and some people don't. And that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, that's perfectly valid. I mean, when people ask me what I do, my first answer is, as pompous as this sounds, is I usually say, well, I change lives. Well, how do I do that? I do it a bunch of different ways, but that's what I feel like my purpose is. And I feel like in a lot of ways, yeah, you hang out with homeless people, but you do the same. Can
I steal that one from you?
Yeah, you totally can. We can share it. It's like together we change lives, right? It's about unity. That's the way I see it. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, because at the end of the day, it's about the human touch. It's about connecting, and like we generally talk in this room here in the studio, it's about being vulnerable and communicating. And I feel like that's what you're kind of allowing to occur in your conversations, which is, it's profound.
It's so interesting when you say, about the conversation. I posted about this on Instagram all the time. When I'm sitting next to a homeless person, like, I will actually physically sit, I'll hang out with them. I'll talk to them. Talking to them is so, so important to me, because the average homeless person doesn't hear their name for 3 months, which blows my mind. So When I sit, normally, because I'm there, and I'm saying this not because it's me, but a lot of times when someone else is doing something, there is like a sheep mentality. It's just like social conditioning type thing. People will give $1, people will give food or snack, but they never make eye contact. They never have a conversation. Like, they literally run away. And I would love to talk to some of these people, but you're exactly right. It's the human contact that I'm trying to emphasize with people. You don't even have to give money. Just say, hey, how are you doing? Just the eye contact, the look, is something that I'm trying to get more people to do. And people that spend the day doing it, we had a national give, April 23rd, wrote me messages from all over the world. Like, it changed my whole outlook in one day. So I think that was really cool, because they had conversations.
That's kind of what struck me from what I've read and what I had seen online, is that I kept thinking that you are breaking down, or you're helping us see these people as human beings. But I don't think you're helping us see them. You're drawing down these barriers that we put up in front of people that makes it easier for us to live our day every day. And so, like, with not making eye contact, that kind of thing, that's what I kind of recognize what you're doing, is you're really kind of pulling back the curtain, as Shane likes to say about things. You're pulling back that curtain and saying, we're all in this together, like that photo that I saw of you online. I think that's one of the biggest things, that it seems so simple, and yet it took you to kind of push this thing forward and put it out there for us all to kind of recognize that we all kind of do these things because they're part of this whole social narrative.
Yeah, no, you totally get it. I mean, we're all in this together is the main thing that I try to profess all the time. And pulling the curtain back, I like that too. That's something that I'm trying to show, like, you can walk by people, you can see a difference, or you can judge. But, it's funny. A lot of people ask me too, like, do people say, negative things about what you're doing? It's very rare for someone to say something negative about what I'm doing with homeless people. Once in a while, of course, the get a job kind of thing. But I think a lot of people want that connection and do think we're in this together. They just need people to see people doing it and to showing that example. And unfortunately, there's not enough people doing that now, but I think there is a movement of people who are starting to do that in various ways,
I think, go ahead.
Well, you had said earlier, I would like to talk to somebody who averts their gaze, and doesn't look at people. That's me. So you're going to have a conversation with one of those people. That's me. As soon as Josh told me who was going to be on this week, and I started looking you up, I actually started thinking deeper about the homelessness and who's homeless and why are they homeless. And I am ashamed to say it. In the past, I've been in my van with my kids, and at one particular time I used a homeless person as an educational tool, is what I thought. It's kind of a shitty, dehumanizing thing that I did for my daughter. She was struggling in school and she didn't want to do homework. And we stopped at the stoplight, and a homeless person came up to the car, and I averted my gaze, and I didn't want to make eye contact. I didn't want to invite that conversation. And as we pulled away, I said, "Honey, did you see that person?" She said, "Yes." I go, "That's what happens when you don't do your homework."
Wow.
That's what happens when you're not motivated to go to school. Now, obviously, that's not the case. There's a lot of reasons why somebody could become homeless. People have said, you're one serious illness away from losing your home. You have one serious illness, it bankrupts you, you lose your job because you're there for your spouse, you're there for your child, and now you're homeless. Is it your particular fault that you're homeless? No. The 2008 market crash, that housing bubble that burst. How many people are homeless? How many families are homeless because of being misguided or misled by banks offering a 5-year balloon loan, thinking that they could afford a mansion, and they couldn't, or maybe their jobs dried up in the factory or the warehouse that they were working in, and it went overseas. And now that area that you were living in, that your property taxes were so high, your house was worth so much. Now you're over under? You're under.
Yeah, upside down.
Upside down on your mortgage. You can't financially handle it, and you become homeless. And I was talking to my wife about these tent cities that are throughout the United States because of banks foreclosing on homes and families having nowhere to go. So they basically pitch a tent with a lot of other homeless people. And my wife said, "You know what? I don't really think it's that big of an issue." And I said, "You don't think it's an issue because we're not affected by it. It's a huge issue. There's thousands and thousands of people that are homeless. There's hundreds of thousands of children a year who are homeless under 10 years old." So I am one of those guys, and I apologize for my brass.
I would think there's no shame at all in you saying to your daughter, this is okay. I was the same way too. I walk by homeless people all the time. I had no conversation with them. I had no eye contact with them, and you are one of many. My parents instilled that idea in me the same way. Homeless people, they just don't work, or, and if you do everything right, you won't end up homeless. There's no shame in that because we're here to grow and evolve, right? So if you change your views or you've learned more about it, from the time I've spent with them, I've learned so much about the fact that a lot of times, now sometimes the homeless people choose to be homeless. I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, I have met people, nothing will change their way. They enjoy this, but not enjoy, that's the wrong word, but they choose this life. But a vast majority fall into exactly what you said, a paycheck away, or the commonality that they have is they have no one else, right? So if any of you guys, something happens financially, you have someone to fall back on, whether it be a spouse, a family member. Yep. But what I find with all homeless people is they'll tell me, this happened. There's a woman I help all the time. Her house burnt down and she had no one. And they'll always say, I had no one else to help me. So I think that it's amazing to admit that that was your mindset and you use this as a tool, with your daughter. But it's so funny about your wife too. These 10 cities, I'm very excited to see them. And a lot of people don't think that they're an issue. And when something doesn't affect us, right away, it never is an issue, right?
Right.
So I think that when people write me, and they say things like that, why do you waste your time with these people? Or why can't they just get a job? my answer is always the same. Just spend a day with them. Just spend an hour and let them teach you how close we all are to this, you know? So I don't think there's any shame in that at all. And what's cool now is, if you have been on my Instagram, I don't have children, but I go out with a lot of kids now. Kids are natural givers. They ask no questions. They have no judgment. They'll just hand out food, you know. And in Philadelphia, it's very, where the homeless people are, it's in a very safe, open space. So a lot of people now encourage their children that I work with to go out and see this firsthand. And I think that's really, really a cool thing to do, rather than to say, you know, to cast judgment, maybe to learn about how they got in this situation. So
yeah, it's pretty.
No shame in that. It's all about growth.
It's pretty amazing to think in those terms, because you're right. Looking like I look, which is a little outside the norm, I tend to run into people that judge me from a distance. And it's in that case, you know, kids definitely don't. They're just like, hey, that guy looks funny. And then they ask questions, and then they realize that I'm a nice guy. Funny thing, just recently we were talking actually over breakfast this morning, that I was sitting on a flight as it was boarding, and this older gentleman was walking toward me, and our eyes met, and naturally, I could see, because usually what happens is I'm that guy, you know, that it's like, oh, my seat is next to him, because they don't know, and I understand that. And our eyes met, and I could kind of see, like, okay, we're very different human beings. And he sat down right next to me, and I immediately struck up a conversation. And what I found out is, he found out that I am kind of in the inspiration, motivation business. And I found out that what he does is he goes out to these tent cities, and he sets up shop every season of the year, because we're in the Midwest, you know, it's freezing cold, and it's over near Omaha, and he sets up like this, like, chili in these big pots over fire, and he feeds all these individuals at the tent cities. First thing I said is, what can I do to help? When can I come over there? He's like, well, when it gets warmer is what I'd recommend. But that was the only kind of suggestion or thing that he even brought up. He's like, no, come along, let's do this together. And to have somebody who's so vastly different being willing to connect those dots with a guy like me. I mean, we were probably 60 years apart in age.
Yeah.
And he was like, come on, we're bros. Let's go hang out and do this good thing. Like, that's what I see you doing. And I see you obviously doing it with kids, but it's amazing. I love
that. I think that it is so cool to have those experiences. And that's why I say it's bigger than homelessness. You know, I preach no labels. I preach, like, forgetting about these looks, because you'd be surprised how much people are like you, and people don't give themselves a chance to see this, you know, and it's all around us, and we have to be more open to seeing that we are so much more alike than we are different. And that, I think that once we see that, we'll see big changes.
Definitely. I mean, even at the end of every show, we always say, and Sai screws it up almost every time, but
not every time.
Almost. I said almost every time. But we always say that here is a safe place, because the Wellraiser Radio, Wellraiser Society is about no judgment, just kindness. And that's what it's all about for us, because really it's about that unity. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how young you are, how old you are. I don't care what you're struggling with or what choices brought you to where you're at. I got your back, because we're humans, and we might disagree on everything on earth, but there's one thing we have in common, and that's that we're in it together. Let's freaking grow together. That's what it's all about.
Ready. That's right. That's exactly right.
You know, Lolly, I need to ask you this. You know, you saying that you traveled to Thailand, you know, for a year to figure out who you were. I mean, I'm getting this sense that you are a very brave, extremely brave young lady. And
thank you.
Are you ever afraid, or have you ever been afraid of going out and doing what you're doing right now with the homeless? And have you ever worried about being robbed or any kind of violence? I mean, I'm not a woman, obviously. So
you're not?
Yeah, okay. Right.
The ball kind of gave you away.
Right. But there have been different examples, different was it an SNL skit that two ladies were doing, and the guys, there was a couple guys who were like, "Hey, we're gonna have a party. You wanna come over after classes?" And the girl said, "Well, I gotta check with my friend." And she went into this big long list.
Oh, it was the Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
I'm sorry.
Where
There you go.
She was saying, the guys were just saying, hey, we're going to go to a party. Want to come with us? And she was a sorority girl. He was a sorority guy. And she was saying, well, for me, I need to make sure I have somebody on the phone with me when I'm walking. I got to make sure I'm going from point A to point B with security, somewhat, somebody knowing where I am, because so much can happen between point A and point B because you're a woman. That's
Right.
kind of the gist of
Yes,
the
exactly.
skit.
And when I watched that, it made me, I had this whole different take on, guys take a lot, we take life for granted. We take our sense of security, I think, a lot more for granted than ladies do. And when I've brought up that situation from the Daily Show, what I've gotten back from ladies is that is spot on.
You mean ladies and really small stature males like myself? I got to be aware of that too. Just saying.
And Josh,
we're your security.
So I've gotten a lot of yes, that was supposed to be funny, but it is spot on with what we have to do. Now, you take that idea and I try to apply it to you, but it won't stick. It doesn't stick on you for some reason. When I'm looking at you and when I'm talking to you and when you've talked about how brave you are going to Thailand, taking a year off, starting a business, having a chain at 24. So does it ever make you nervous going out?
Yes. The answer is yes. Okay. This is another thing to be ashamed of. When I first took out speaking of like feeling shame of this, when I first took Tom out, the homeless guy, I was like, okay, and this is from years of people, it's like you have that societal conditioning, like, well, is this guy going to rob me? Like, could I be making the wrong choice in doing this,
Right.
And the thing is it's not just with homeless people. The SNL skit, while I haven't seen it, I would agree it's spot on too. When you are a woman, you do take your safety, guys, for granted, because not that bad things don't happen to males, but like even I live in the safest part of Philadelphia, and there's still things that happen around the corner from me, raves, robberies, things like that. I have my bodyguard, my dog with me, but I always in the back of my mind, no matter what, and it's not just with the homeless people, my fear, I live a fearless life of like, I'm going to do what I'm drawn to do, my purpose. I'm not really like concerned about following things as they should, and I trust the universe and that. But fear with like I get people that are like, well, you're going to go to Skid Row when you're in LA. Like, I know in my heart I'm going to go to Skid Row when I'm in LA. But and they're like, you're crazy if you go there, because I have to see it. There's something that draws me. I have to see it. But do I have fear? Of course I do. Not here in Philly. And like, I did a shorter tour. It might have been just when I started following you, Josh. Actually, I did Maryland, and I did Delaware and PA and Jersey. And when I went to Trenton, I was like, whoa, like, this is bad. Like, I'm afraid to get out of the car. So, I have fear with that. I'm not going to put my life in jeopardy, but at the same time, I've definitely pushed myself much more than a lot of people would do, because I realize like I'm drawn to do it. But I see, I see the power in having the movement happen, where I know that when I'm in the cities, there will be a bunch of people with me. So if I go to a city and I'm giving to homeless and I have no idea about the area, I'm glad that I have other people that are going to kind of guide me and be with me. That
kind of led to my next question was, I've been to Skid Row, seen Skid Row before. And if anything for me, maybe as a guy, it's just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And so, I think you probably have reason to be nervous. I was nervous while I was there, but it was more of just this overwhelming, like, what are we doing as a society? When I see things like that, it makes me look in the mirror and say, what are we all doing as a group of human beings to let things like this get to this point? So when you see things like that, obviously I'm sure you have similar heartbreaking situations. Do you carry that with you? Does it inspire you? Does it, keep you moving forward? How do you kind of deal with that heartbreak?
Well, I have an extreme case of being like an empath. So like things like I do feel things like for a while after I hear a story, especially a story that I'm like, oh my God, like that could be me. Like we all do, So I carry it with me to see things like that. It makes me very sad that this is America, and we have all these resources. Like, what really upset me, I posted in various countries, third world countries, they have shared pantries for homeless people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'd really like to do this here in Philadelphia. where I go and I collect food from places and it goes in a bin. And everyone's like, and I'm talking, this is in Afghanistan, like Bangladesh, India, all these countries, you know. And everybody wrote, this will never happen in America, never. And those are the kind of things that make me very sad. Like, we can't take food that's going to be thrown out and give it to people who don't know if they're going to eat, you know. That upsets me. And how some of the people are, you know, a lot of homeless people have phones, okay? Are you familiar with the Obama phone?
The Obama phone?
I am not. I'd love to hear a little about that.
The only thing that registers is that I kept seeing an interview with a lady going, all right, Obama got elected. I get my free phone now. Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you're talking about? All right, good. All right.
I've not heard
Yes,
of
that went all over the internet. Like, look, he's giving it. Okay. But what people don't understand is when you are poor, it's very expensive to be poor, okay? So they have prepaid cell phones, essentially, where they call, it's like 4 times, if they had the minutes we had, it'd be like 4 times the cost. So there's things that you learn about how they too are being exploited in some ways that is very, very sad to me. And a lot of their stories are very, very sad to me, and I do carry it with me. So what I see on the road, I know it's going to stick with me, and it's going to be like emotionally a lot for me. But it's like I'm drawn to see these things like this, like continually. So,
have you heard of that movie Just Eat It?
No.
It's completely about how much is thrown away in this country in grocery stores, and I mean they show extreme examples of, like, you know, containers just full of like organic handmade hummus that's 2 days past the date, and this guy is up to his waist in it. And I personally like hummus, so it was appalling to me. But then I thought, well, I mean, but he showed tons and tons of examples of all this food that's being thrown away. And so my first thought is like, how come there can't be some correlation? Why can't, if they're going to be saying, hey, listen, you know, we just want you to know that this is past our due date, and so we're going to give it to this group of people, and you can share it however you want. You guys send a piece of paper saying, we're free of any kind of harm that takes place. And I mean, but most of it is like legit. It's like bananas that have bruises on them because we all want these perfectly yellow bananas. It's just so ridiculous. So, I mean, I wonder if you've bumped into, have you ever thought about doing something like that? Have you had people just give food like that? Does grocery stores do stuff like that? I mean, dumpster diving and eating off of it is like, some people I know that do it for like on purpose. Like
it's a movement of they're called Freegan. There's a movement of people that eat out of dumpsters and everything.
There you go.
Freegan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I saw a show.
I actually was with, I actually stayed in an Airbnb, and this kid gave me some wine. He's like, oh, these are Freegan grapes. Like, I picked these out of a dumpster. So people do this. But the reality is we live in an extremely litigious society, right? I made for Easter chicken with potato and green beans. And one of my best friends, hi, if you're watching this, wrote me, and she's like, when this is out, she wrote me and she's like, well, I would do this, but I'm afraid a homeless person's going to sue me. I'm like, I refuse to live in a world where I fear like homeless people suing me over this. But the reality is these corporations, you know, if it's past the due date, I mean, we live in a society where everything is based in money and then, you know, fear. And so a lot of the things with the past due date, Starbucks just announced they're going to give some of their food away. I know Panera's done it for quite some time.
Right.
But, you know, I understand the company stance too, because they don't want to be in some kind of lawsuit. And it's a shame that we have to think this way. But
yeah, there's actually I was just looking it up on treehugger.com. I know it sounds horrible, right? But it's treehugger.com. If you go there or you type in NYC nonprofit rescues food from restaurants and gives it to the homeless. So there is a gross amount of food that is thrown away. So thankfully there are people that are going out there and looking after that. But you know, you don't necessarily delve into that realm of looking after the homeless or helping with the homeless. You deal with these things called dignity bags, which is probably maybe I don't want to toot your horn too much, but it's probably one of the coolest names and best names for what you're doing.
Toot my horn, please toot my horn.
There you go.
Yeah, I will second Shane's statement. Like, I think that's the biggest thing we can ever do is give people their dignity. I mean, everybody wants to earn whatever it is they have or to uphold their integrity and their dignity. unfortunately, some of us just aren't always in the position to do that. And it's awesome you're giving them the opportunity to do that, because they still have to make the choice. They could be like, you know what, chick, get out of here. What are you doing? Why are you handing me this crap? I don't need you. But they're not. They're allowing you. They're being vulnerable and accepting that. And I think it's very cool of you to be able to hand them that dignity and allow them to live up to that.
I'll tell you what, you would love the vulnerability of homeless people. And that's one of the reasons I keep going back to them. And I tell people this all the time. Homeless people have no wrapping around them. They don't try to impress you. Like, you know, I'll say, do you want me to buy you fries, homeless person? I have no bottom teeth. I can't eat fries. You know, like they just say it like it is, you know. They'll tell me, you know, basically, like, they are the most, first of all, mindful people, because they truly do live in the moment, but they're also very raw and vulnerable without even really trying. So, you know, they don't have they're not ashamed, you know. I'll come in, I usually push a cart. Sometimes I use my backpack. It depends how much I have that day, but, you know, it'll be like, yeah, I have socks, my holes in my socks, you know, my underwear, like whatever. They're just very raw, and they'll tell you what they need. So when I made the dignity bags, I kind of just did, like, I asked them what they needed. And in the winter, it's more things, you know, like hand warmers, foot warmers, that kind of thing, nail clippers, tampons for women. So I find that a lot of people that do this do give food, which is great. But I wanted to do something else, like the basic necessities, razors, soaps, that less people gave. That's kind of how I came up with the idea. So,
what, you know, thinking about this, and watching some videos and the stuff that I've been prepping for the show a little bit last week, what do you feel is the most rewarding, or what do you feel like the homeless that you interact with get more out of? Do you feel like the conversation, the one-on-one, you saying that maybe they don't hear their name for months at a time or weeks at a time? Do you feel like, from your interaction, do you feel like they get more out of being treated and being seen as another human being? Do you think that is more important to them than the dignity bags? I mean, the dignity bags are great, but the conversation is almost worth its weight in gold, it sounds like.
The bag is less than the conversation. The conversation, interaction, you know, like, I always ask them their name. Once I learn their name, I always call them my name. And the first time I called home, like, I met a guy, I learned his name. The next time I saw him 2 or 3 days later, I said, hey, how you doing? I called him by name. And I actually saw he actually visibly
was startled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, now I'll remember every name, you know, because that had like such a big effect on me. So yeah, it's the conversation more, you know. Of course, it's nice to get soap, razors, and things like that. They need these things,
right,
you know. But the conversation, the asking them about their life, I find very few, you know, there's 1 or 2 guys, and I see them, I know who they are. They don't want to talk to me. They want me to give them the bag, and then they want me to leave them alone, which is fine with me too. You know, it doesn't offend me, but most of them want you to sit down, have a conversation with them. They're lonely, they're isolated, and the people that give to them don't talk to them. So for them to get to share their story, or tell me a little bit about themselves, or just like tell me how their day is, you know?
That's got to be the loneliest one too, when it's not like you're alone and by yourself. You're in the midst of humanity walking by you on a daily basis, and you're as alone as you could be if you're on a desert island somewhere. That's got to be a really impactful thing.
That's a really good point. It's crazy to watch people walk down Walnut Street, one of the busiest streets here in Philadelphia. The sidewalks are filled, and you see a homeless person just on the side of the road. So you're right, to be immersed with people, and you're just not there. You know, Richard Gere did a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw this. It went viral. He was played a homeless man, and he sat on a street corner in New York. He's like, it was the loneliest I ever felt. No one even knew it was Richard Gere. No one even looked at him because he appeared to be a homeless man. So, yeah, it's really lonely to be in a sea of people, and nobody really sees you.
Similarly, there was years ago, there was a young man, and he was in Hollywood, actor. I can't remember what his name was, but he dressed up as a social experiment. He dressed up in a female fat suit just to try to get a little bit of empathy, a little bit of, is it really that bad?
Some understanding.
Yeah.
Some understanding. So he walked around basically as an obese lady, And his biggest thing, the thing that really just shook him to his core, was that he was invisible. Nobody would make eye contact with him. And this was, like I said, years ago, like 5 to 7 years ago, like really before a lot of the social media stuff had hit.
When you were starting your first business, in other words.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When back then, when you were, 24
and starting your own business.
Yeah. Back then. But that was the biggest thing. Like, feeling invisible was the harshest and most demoralizing thing about not feeling like you're part of society, not feeling like you're part of the norm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It's like the isolation of it all. So, you can give. You really hit that. The bags, that's what I try to say to people. They message me literally all the time. What do I do? I'm like, just make sure when you give, if you want my advice, talk to them, see them, ask them their name, and the first time you'll maybe feel uncomfortable, but now it's like, I know that the worst that's going to happen. And that's the thing. Some people feel like, oh, I'll be rejected by a homeless person, or, as if them not wanting to talk to you is like some sort of rejection, or, and people are fragile about these kind of things. So right. I had someone write me the other day and they're like, oh, I bought this homeless person a sandwich and I bent down and I want to say hello. And they said they just wanted money or whatever, and I'm like, don't let that be your one experience. Because right. I wrote that on an Instagram post. My first experience with a homeless person, I was 19. And I was at University of Pennsylvania visiting a friend. And I bought them Boston Market. And they're like, I'm hungry. I bought them Boston Market. They threw it right on the floor when I gave it to them. That I wanted money. Man. And that experience stayed with me for a long time. After that, I was like, well, homeless people only want money. And now I see how grateful they are, because if I let that be my story and I let one experience define this, I would have never seen somebody light up with soap or be so grateful for the things that I give, or tell me thank you for doing this. You really made such a difference just in my day, and that makes my day. So,
and that could go for anybody. I mean, right. You could bump into anybody on a bad day and you think, oh my God, this guy's a horrible person, or this woman's terrible. But maybe you caught them on a bad day. I mean, I think it goes back to what you were talking about before, is that they're just people. Mm-hmm. So maybe they were in a bad mood, and no matter how hungry they were, they didn't want the food. Yeah, so you have to take everything with a grain of salt. They're just people.
Yeah. But you would be surprised how many people share this like one story they have and say, this is why they don't talk or give to homeless people. And I'm like, how can one experience define you? And you're right. It doesn't have to just apply about anything. You can never let one experience define a group of people or an event or anything like that. You have to keep learning.
Well, it's like one interaction with a nurse who's not very nice to me doesn't mean that all the nurses I interact with are horrible people.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's like you can.
Dude, my wife is not nice to you for a specific reason. We're not going to go into it, but it has something to do with what you did last New Year's Eve. Let's move on.
So to switch gears slightly, and honestly, coming from my own experiences, and like, I'm a giver. I find that that's what I want to do. Anything I can do to help, I find that fills me up. The more that I give, the more that I get, kind of by default, that whole like what comes around goes around thing. But what it comes from is my past. Kind of like, I remember the one person that made it okay for me to feel like I was worthy. And I remember the way they reached out. I remember those moments. And like, you're that person, obviously, for a lot of people. But usually individuals like myself, I find, kind of have a bit of a past, maybe a dark past, that helped lead them to understanding how good giving feels because they had been given too. Can you relate to that? Do you have like a story or maybe a little bit of a dark past that kind of brought you to a place of giving like this, or was it something else?
With like homelessness, are you talking about? Or?
Just in general, like a lot of people that tend to want to give and to help often come from a place where they needed some assistance at some point, or like in my case, I was like super anxiety ridden, really down and out, just didn't have anything. Like, I was ready to end my life. And a couple of dudes moved in below me that I kind of sort of knew. And, they kind of were like, dude, whatever you need, we're just downstairs, come on down. And that alone was enough for me to know.
And what age was this for you?
I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 20. And that alone, kind of knowing that, hey, there was a little bit of hope. And then I still bottomed out before I started to come back and be like, you know what? what if I kind of believed in this guy, and what if I looked in the mirror and thought, you're kind of all right. You can probably do this. And knowing I had some support from a couple of people, just that I didn't even really know, really made me realize the value of just saying it, just being present. And that's why I bring it up. I mean, was there something for you? Was there a moment or a catalyst?
It wasn't necessarily like a darkness for me. It was more, I guess, growing up, I really wasn't that understood by my family and wanting to do things for other people. Not that my family didn't, God, if they see this, they'll kill me. But I had a different view of the world my whole life. And I felt like people didn't really see the world that I saw. So now I see that there's people like you, even when I found you on Instagram, and I have to find you two guys on Instagram too. I find people on Instagram who are doing similar things to me and kind of like a community. And I always felt this way inside, but I didn't have that kind of example. I didn't have it with any of my friends. I didn't really have it with my family. You go to school, and do you ever learn to give or do for others really in school? I mean, not so much. And I didn't do well in school. I didn't perform well in school. I don't know. I always just felt like there was something bigger in life. And so now it's kind of less from a place of darkness. I guess darkness is being misunderstood in a way. So now I can say, well, I see things differently. This is my contribution to the world, and my contribution to the world is not going to be in the form of a business anymore. And that's when I started realizing with my business, although I had a lot of money, and now not a ton of money, but I was doing well. And like I said, I live with less. It kind of got to the point where I realized that money and owning businesses and expanding doesn't fulfill me in a way that giving does. And so I was always kind of pushed in the direction of success. And even to this day, my dad, he'll be like, well, you have to try to get sponsors for this now that I'm a registered nonprofit. And, I see where he comes from. He's like, maybe one day you can live off this. But he doesn't necessarily understand that that's not my goal. Do you understand?
Yeah, so, I get it.
In that way, it comes from a place of since I am a nonprofit, I get to say and do what I want, and I get to make it be my way. And if somebody doesn't agree with me, when I had businesses, I could never say the things that I say now. It's funny. My friend was like, never post anything, even remotely political. And I'm talking about not presidential political. Life is political to me, and I'm like, I already played that game for years, the neutral person who said nothing because I had to make a profit, right? So now I feel like my life is more centered on, my soul, my way things are. And my whole life I was geared away from that. And now I'm coming back to that. So,
well, it sounds like really it's come to a point where it's about fulfillment. And I don't mean success for all of us is different. For me, honestly, success is defined for how many smiles I can create in a day. And if I'm living every day with a smile on my face, that's success for me. And I know that might sound crazy, but it could be because I gave to a homeless person. If that created their smile and it gave me a smile, success. It's not that I have, $150,000 sitting around in a bank account. That's not what it's about for me. It's about that for others sometimes, but the personal fulfillment that I have, I'm walking on freaking sunshine every day, right? Because I have the opportunity to do this, to connect with the wonderful people we're talking to today. Are you kidding me? This is my life right now. And we're able to connect. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, it sounds like you're like me and you thrive off of connection.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people thrive off of human connection. They thrive off of the simplicity of making other people happy, or just choosing when you wake up and you're out in the world to be kind to other people. And I think that we do not instill that enough in kids. We don't act like that's important. And then you wonder why people are anxious or depressed or need a medication for this or that, because fulfillment often does not come in the form of, the traditional view of success for a lot of people. And I know it doesn't for me. I see that it clearly doesn't for you guys. And also in the same realm, I see a lot of people now with B Corps. I don't know, do you have B Corps in your state, benefit corporations?
No, it doesn't sound familiar to me, but I'm generally uneducated.
They're in very few states, like mostly in the Northeast, which is basically like, you have a business, but you have to give 30% of your profits away, and they're becoming very, very popular.
Wow.
So I think it's a new movement of people who are able to make money and live, but also give back something and be socially responsible in the same way. So I think that people are realizing it's not all about, just money.
Not all about the dollars.
That's right.
Not all about the dollars.
So fill us in a little bit on what you're doing now for this trip, where you're going. You're heading across the nation. You're planning this dignity project. Can you kind of tell us what cities you're planning on hitting on? How's your tour going to travel? How are you doing this?
Yeah, so I'm using a camper van, which is a smaller version of an RV, because I got this idea that I was going to use an RV, and then I realized RVs don't go through cities. So like, I'm not practical. I just have ideas, and then someone's like, "Lolly, like you can't drive an RV through a city." And then I thought about it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've never seen an RV in Philly." So like a smaller version. It has a bed, and it has like a kitchen in the back. I'll be going. I might have to cheat because I have a map behind me.
That's all right. Totally cheat.
I'll be going to DC, LA, San Francisco, Detroit. God, there's so many.
Iowa City? Please say Iowa City. Are you going to Iowa City?
Omaha?
No.
Oh.
Are you traveling through Iowa at all by chance?
You have to.
Yeah.
I don't know, because that's also been mapped out by other people. See, I come up with the idea, but I can't do like the practical terms. So
it's all good.
If I went through Iowa, I will find you guys for sure.
Yeah,
But
we talked over our breakfast that if you come through Iowa, we need to hit up lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever, and make sure you get refueled to get back on the road, so you don't have to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Let us know, please.
I don't know if I've ever even actually been through Iowa ever on a trip, so I have to check that out. But yeah, Seattle, Portland, a bunch of major cities, because I find when I hit these smaller cities, it's so rare to find like homeless people, or there's so few. I wanted it to be in places that I could really find people. So I have friends that are in all different cities that will be joining. People from Instagram are like, "Stay at my place here." It's awesome. It's really cool. But yeah, so there's like, I got a little solar shower, and I'll be driving through Montana. Which, have you guys been to Montana?
Beautiful.
Sure have. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
I have not. It's something I'm looking very much forward to. So yeah, just getting there. I guess I'll make the bags before I go, or have them at least kind of set up. And I'm going to be filming too.
Awesome.
I have somebody who's going to be making a little documentary. Hopefully when I get back, that'll all pan out. So yeah.
Amazing.
I got to say, looking through your Instagram page, the thing that probably strikes me the most is that I really appreciate you doing the Instagram. I really appreciate you taking the photos of the people that you meet when you're out, because it shatters the idea of, this is who I think is homeless. Mm-hmm. Looking through your pictures, I see just about every demographic, every type of person there could be that you are interacting with. That it's not homelessness doesn't just affect one class of people, or one type of person, or one sex, one gender. You really, by looking at your Instagram, you're really seeing that it is a widespread. I mean, there's a picture of one guy in here. I would think, he's early 30s, like maybe mid 20s. He's got it going on. No, he's got a sign that says anything helps, even a smile.
Oh yeah, Cameron. Everybody loves Cameron. He's the hot homeless man. Yeah.
See, there's a business in that for that guy, man.
I know. I tell him, he laughs because a lot of people approach him just from that Instagram photo, and he laughs because I'm like, you need to do something with this. But yeah, like people see it, and they see the different groups, the age groups, and the different people that are homeless, and they're like, wow, like I had no idea these people look like me. People need to see somebody that looks like them.
Right.
And I'm told in different parts of the country, in Portland, there's a lot of youth that are homeless. Like, I'm talking very young. The average age somebody told me it was like 26 years old. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then I run into elderly people who are like, have to brave the winter. These are people who are like 75 years old that have to sit through a Philadelphia winter, which I know is not compared to yours, but it's still bad. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. It touches every demographic. There's people that have master's degrees that I meet out there. It's not your typical, a lot of people think it ties around addiction. And there is addiction in homeless people, but that is not the main cause at all. So,
well, that brings up a good point. There's obviously all kinds of individuals, at all levels of humanity, all types. And we can't go on without bringing this up, in my opinion. What is the kind of the coolest story, or the most heart-wrenching story, or the most memorable story that you have? Maybe it's something someone shared with you, or just that, you sat down with someone and it wasn't what you expected. Is there one thing or one story that really stands out to you from doing this?
There's a couple that I had on when a news station covered me that really got to me. This guy, Glen, and you can see him on my Instagram a couple times. He actually had a job in Rittenhouse Square as a chef. Rittenhouse Square is a very posh area of the city. He was a chef and he got sick, very sick. He was in the hospital for like 2 to 3 months. And in that industry, there's no like benefits. There's no, you can come back to work. And he fell behind, he wasn't making a lot of money, but he was okay. And when he came back, he had nothing. From a sickness. So that story really got me. Like I said, the woman whose house burns down. There's a girl I work with, she got a divorce, and, she went to the doctor and the doctor prescribes her some medicines. The next thing she knows, she's, addicted to opiates. There's a lot of things that happen to people that you guys know. And like I said, I always bring this up, but the thing they don't have is a sister or a cousin or somebody to stay with till they can get back on their feet. So, I hear these stories all the time, and it's normally just, a couple paychecks away. And that's a sad, scary truth for a lot of people. A lot more people than I was, ignorantly unaware of how realistic it is that people are very, very close to, not making rent.
Right. Well, we're nearing kind of time today.
Right.
So there's a few things that we do, because obviously with the Wellraiser Society and Wellraiser Radio, the big thing is, what are we doing for society in general? Are we giving? And obviously you are, but one of the other things is kind of pursuing what we want in life. And would you say that you're living your dream or your passion at this point? And if not,
I am.
You are.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's
and
great.
It's funny, when I make no money, I never thought that, what I'm doing, making no profit from it, would be living a dream, and it is for me.
Seeing your smile when you said that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you lit up pretty good there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like, holy crap. Yeah, this is great. I'm making no money. This is so good.
I'm poor also. No, but yeah, no, it is though, because it is my passion. I get to go out, and giving for me, it does something for me that I think it would do for a lot of people if they had the time. And
Agreed.
I don't think the people that don't give necessarily don't have a good heart or whatever. People are tired. They're working they don't have the time. But I think giving, we are hardwired to give. I really believe this. Scientifically, we could go into all that, but I'm a geek like that, but we are hardwired to give. And it fulfills a part of us, very much so. So yeah, I'm living my dream. I get to travel the country, and, not in a glamorous way, but I get to see how people live all around the world, and I will come home with a different perspective. And for me, that is living a dream. Because if I sat in a bubble and I didn't see things differently, I would not change. I would not grow. And that's kind of like really what I'm most concerned with. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, real quick, before you do your Fast Five, I would be remiss, sir, if I didn't let Lolly know one question, or ask her one question from when I found out that we were going to be talking to you. I sent your website to some of my friends who I value their opinion, and I had asked them, if you could meet this person, what would you ask her? what would be your concerns? Now, I've already asked one of the questions, which was, do you fear for your safety? And
am I going to die on the trip?
Right.
Yes.
Are you going to die? Right. The other question was, you saying now that you are your own boss and you've left the fear of I have to play the middle of the road so that I don't push away customers or sponsors or whatever, but now you're in this new place where you get to decide. Have you, there, like, no good deed goes unpunished. You know, every selfless act is somewhat selfish. I mean, you're doing something that sounds selfless, but selfishly, you get to travel, you get to feed your soul. It makes you feel better. There's a little bit that's selfish about it. Mm-hmm. Have you been contacted by organizations that would like to give? They would like to help you out, but there's an agenda. We'll do this, but if we do, you got to do this for us.
Your friends have excellent questions. Yes. That's a great question, actually. So I haven't contacted, yes, this has happened, but I will not name this organization. But they're a very wealthy organization here in Philadelphia. And he got in touch with me, you know, he's like, I'd like to get some big time money, but you can't leave and go on this trip. And I'm like, I just spent 2.5 months telling everybody this is what the money's for. You know, I'm very transparent with all of the money. You know? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, Phil, you need to stay in your own community. You need to stay here in Philadelphia, which, I mean, why? Like, I live in Philadelphia. I'm coming back to Philadelphia, you know. So absolutely, there's people with big strings attached that want to give to me. So I would rather collect money. You know, I have over 200, I think it's 215 individual donors. I'd rather be a grassroots thing where people just give because they want to give. There's selfishness on my part. I suppose you're right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, but, at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel right for me to be attached to someone who's going to tell me where I can hand out my bags or where I have to be, I just say no.
Yeah. Or I'll see you when I get back from this trip.
Yeah. I said that. I said that to him, you know, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not just going around the country. And he's like, Philadelphia needs you for that month. I'm like, well, I'll be back to do this and this, you know? So, this foundation, you know, some people might say it was foolish to turn that down. But then I have like a boss. Then I have someone telling me how I have to do things. Then I have to meet with board members. Like, I can't stand meeting with board members. I don't want to go to cocktail parties and talk to people. Not that there's anything wrong with people doing that. Like, I've already done that. I just want to go on streets with my cart, give to people, share what I do online, and hear people's stories. That's it. It's like, I want to keep it as simple as possible. And sometimes, money, especially from big sponsors, complicates that. So
yeah. Living a simple and completely fulfilling life always breeds happiness. I don't care who you are. All the people I run into, no matter, you know, I've had a ton of money, I've been broke. Guess what? I figured out how to be happy somewhere in between, and it has to do with being simple, and it has to do with being fulfilled. Nothing else. That's where happiness comes from. That's it. You choose it every day, and that's how you choose it, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So every show, we do something we call the Fast Five. It's essentially kind of, we ask you the questions, you just spit out the answer. They're simple things, but they're real. Are you ready for it? Fast Five.
I'm ready.
All right. Hats or bandanas?
What is it?
Hats or bandanas?
Oh my God, you don't look at my Instagram. I wear them both all the time.
I know, that's why we did it. That's kind of evil.
I love you guys. Okay, hats.
Yeah, good choice. I'm admittedly slightly disappointed you didn't show up wearing like the brown hat with the wavy brim on it. I'm a little sad about that.
I know, people always comment about my hats. Yes, I'm happy.
Okay, music or movies?
Music, definitely.
Yeah, good call. Starburst or Skittles?
Neither. I don't eat candy.
Ooh, hard edge right there.
Yeah.
Listen to that.
He doesn't do that stuff.
I know. I think we just brought down the whole podcast with that one statement.
I'm a health freak. I'm sorry.
I don't do sugar.
No, right. It's all good. I can relate. I generally don't do much sweets either, but it just seems so valid. I don't know. You seem so peppy. It seemed like something to be part of your personality. Apparently not. All right. So what piece of advice do you wish you could give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. My advice for my 18-year-old self would be to leave college, beg my parents. My parents were very kind enough, thank you, Mom and Dad, to pay for my undergrad, which is very nice, take the money and travel and leave and then come back and start a business without going to college.
Totally. My life. I mean, honestly, my
That's
education
awesome
was through
life.
travel and
I
entrepreneurship.
say this, I feel bad, and someone actually wrote this scathing thing to me once about this, because I'm not saying I'm not appreciative, but I really do not. I'm not a huge proponent of college unless you're going to be something specific like doctor, lawyer.
I tend to also relate, which will probably get me in terrible amounts of trouble right now with my publicist, but I would definitely agree.
Self-education, man. That's where it's at.
All right. So last of the Fast Five, where can people find out what you're up to and what's next for you on this tour?
The best place is Instagram, because I obnoxiously post a lot there, especially because I'm leaving soon at The Real Humanist. But I also have the Dignity Project on Facebook. And that I post on Facebook. I just post what you were speaking of, which is the quotes from the people. But really, to follow me, it's Instagram is the best bet. Excellent.
Well, we'll have you kind of hold the line for a minute, but really huge thanks for hanging out today. I mean, it's been awesome learning the stories.
You guys are awesome. I wish every time I interviewed with people, they were fun and intriguing and interesting. Not that everyone's not, but you guys are awesome.
Look at you getting all PC here. It's all good. We are, in fact,
I'm afraid
the
that someone's going to see us and be like, well, thanks, Lolly. That was really nice. It's just it's nice to talk to people, I guess, who are not so sterile,
Nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Lolly.
that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you're on those other interviews, you can be like, "Hey, look, this was a great interview." However, you should check out Wellraiser Radio, because those guys are amazingly ingenious at how they do things and very in touch with reality.
I see why you're a marketing genius.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what? What are you talking about? But for real, thank you very much. And for those of you who want to check out this episode and any other episode, definitely check out iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, joshuacoburn.com. And for those struggling with anything in life, definitely hit us up. Hit me up at joshuacoburn.com on the Relief and Resource Center. And on joshuacoburn.com also, you can check out the Wellraiser Society page, and you can actually submit questions for guests, much like Shane had for you today, Lolly, for future guests. So be sure to check that out. And as always here on Wellraiser Radio, it's all about
no judgment,
just kindness.
Thank you very much, guys.
You got
Have a
it
great
right.
day.
Good job, little
I was
fella.
going to say, he did the ending.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
He nailed it.
It's only been 1,000 podcasts.
And for real, Lolly, thank you so much for
Thank you, guys. I
hanging
really
out.
appreciate you taking the time. I know you have huge guests on, and I'm just this little chicken Philly, but I really appreciate you guys having me on.
We have huge guests on and a huge, awesome chick in Philly.
Yeah, that's
See,
Yeah.
that's the
Thank
thing. Not physically huge, just to be clear. Everybody on the
Everybody is
big
huge to
personality. That's true. Everybody is huge.
I
to me.
have
I'm
to
a little
come to
guy.
Iowa to see how small you really are. This is now shooting me.
He's
I
not
know.
that small.
It's funny. Honestly, the reason this comes up is because no matter what high school I'm speaking at, the student, I don't care if it's junior high, the students are always bigger than me, and I always get the whole you're a lot bigger on the internet. And I'm like, actually, you're looking at it on your phone, so I'm about 1.25 inches tall, but apparently I come across as this hulking man, which actually in this room is probably Lord Shane over here.
Unless you're sitting next to the
Tattoo
Ronald
station.
McDonald statue in the Ronald McDonald, then you would look very tiny. You got to put
I am.
in perspective.
Well,
Then they'll know.
So when we do promotional shots for this show, you'll eventually see me standing about 6 foot in front of both of these guys. So I look equally huge or bigger than them. So. But for real, we appreciate you coming on and
That's
taking the
awesome,
time.
you guys. Much love, and
So
thank
nice
you
to
for
meet you.
having
Have a
me.
good day.
Yep. Bye,
And
Lolly.
let me know when this is out, okay?
All right.
Excellent.
All right, guys,
Thanks
have
so
a good
much.
one.
See ya.
Later.